We are so happy that you can join us today, and we hope that you are all safe during this massive spring snowstorm that we are experiencing here in Montana. Today is our second webinar for our Parent Empowerment Speaker Series. We have a different expert speaker featured each Tuesday at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. The link will remain the same the entire month. So if you missed last week's webinar with therapist Amy Rust, be sure to go to mediasafety.org to view or to share the recording. This webinar is hosted by End Exploitation Montana. My name is Chelsea Winterhaller. I am the Director of Operations at End Exploitation Montana, and I'm your host. I just want to go through a few logistics. This is a webinar, so you will only be able to see and hear me and our guest speaker. So you are all muted, but there is a Q&A feature that is open for your questions and for your comments. Be sure to select the option to submit your question anonymously if that is important to you. At the end of the presentation, we will have some time for questions, which I will pull from that Q&A. So feel free to submit them during the presentation. I do want to remind you that this presentation today is intended for adults. Feel free to share our posts on social media, and this video will be posted on our website, mediasafety.org, after the event. You will receive a follow-up email with a direct link to the video. We are immensely grateful to our sponsors for this event. We couldn't do this without amazing community support, so we want to specifically thank our champion sponsors: Billings Public Schools, St. Vincent Healthcare, Brewer Dental Center, Billings Clinic, Rimrock Pediatric Dentistry, and Yellowstone Bank. This speaker series came about because parents are the most important protective factor in the safety of their children. And we want to strengthen and empower each of you here today. So today we have two speakers. Stacy Zinn, Resident Agent in Charge, Montana Drug Enforcement Administration, and also Chris McClure, Agent and Montana Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force Commander. They will both be talking to us about the harmful trends they are seeing among Montana youth. We will first hear from Stacy, and I want to tell you just a little bit about her. In Stacy's DEA career, she has been a bodyguard, developed investigations against the Mexican cartels, conducted multiple undercover operations for the FBI, and worked in the Foreign Deployed Advisory and Support Team that supported the DEA drug efforts in Afghanistan. For a time, she was even stationed in Lima, Peru, working with the Peruvian counter-narcotics police. But luckily for us, she made her way to Montana to oversee the Tactical Diversion Squad responsible for investigations located in eastern Montana. In November 2018, she was the first female promoted to be the resident agent in charge of Montana and oversees the 3 DEA offices located in Billings, Missoula, and Great Falls. After Stacy speaks, I will introduce you to Chris McClure and turn the time over to him. Stacy, thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have you. So I'll go ahead and just give it over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I have the little icon circle going around and round and round. So hopefully the weather's not impacting.
Of course, it likes to do that, right? When
Yes.
Everybody is watching you.
I know it. Oh no.
And also, if it would help, if you're more comfortable, we could jump to Chris.
Well, let's see. Let's go ahead and jump to Chris and let me see what I'll check my connectivity.
Okay, Agent Chris McClure is a 33-year veteran of the Virginia State Police Bureau of Criminal Investigation and retired in 2021 as an assistant special agent in charge, supervising the narcotics, drug diversion, and gang task force. During his career, Agent McClure has provided training to law enforcement, provided public awareness presentations, and was the state contact for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children cyber tips. In addition to his investigative experience, Agent McClure was responsible for instructing new ICAC investigators and developing and instructing courses in criminal investigations, crime scene investigations, and other topics. We are so grateful that Agent McClure has made his way to Montana, where he is now the commander of the Montana Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. So Chris, let's give this a shot with you.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Again, my name is Chris McClure. I just want to speak to you a few minutes about the topics that we have in this series, and from my perspective, what I see, what the task force is seeing, and give you some tips in helping to protect your child or your children. We as parents are behind the curve, especially if you're my age. I didn't even see my first computer at home until I was 35. I didn't see my first cell phone until I was 40. So I'm well behind when it comes to technology and social media. Today, a lot of parents provide iPads for their toddlers for both entertainment and also for learning. So children these days have grown up with technology and social media. So as parents, we're behind. So one of the things that I want to emphasize today is knowledge, building your knowledge about the technology that we're seeing today, and communication with your children. Let's see, let's go into here. Okay. One of the things that we've seen in reference to COVID is because children are now at home. I think that's changed now, but in 2020, 2021, children were now at home taking classes for school. From the time they get up in the morning until in the evening, they're online, they're on their social media because they're no longer in school, after school programs, and being able to socialize in person with their friends. Now they're doing it online. Unfortunately, predators know this as well, and so they increased targeting our children. So it's necessary for us to be able to understand what our children are doing and to monitor what they're doing, and to help facilitate communication with them. Here are some of the current issues that we're seeing. Texting and sexting. You probably have heard this before. This is not new to the United States or the world, or even in Montana. What are your children doing? What we have seen is that used to be that children were sexting, which is sending nude pictures to each other, a boyfriend to a girlfriend, girlfriend to a boyfriend. But the scary thing now is that the ages have gotten lower, where we're now seeing elementary school children who are doing this, who are interested in, they're coming of age, are interested in their bodies, they're interested in how they're socializing with others. And so this is something that you may not be aware of, but they are doing this, and we're seeing it. One of the things that parents may not understand is that there are many ways of texting and messaging. There's so many apps that are out there, and so many ways for them to communicate with their peers and others that we may not be aware of it. And it also is different in the areas. You might have children in Billings who utilize Snapchat. It's the cool messaging app. You might have children in Missoula who are using WhatsApp. So parents need to be aware of what their children are using and the platforms that they're using to help protect them. One of the things that I wanted to note is that when a child sends a picture out of themselves, once it's out there, you're never going to get it back. And you lose control of that picture. The child loses control of that picture. Say, for example, a young man sends a picture of himself naked to his girlfriend. Once it's out there, he has no control over that. Say there's a bad breakup, whatever circumstances there are, and she decides to send that out. And then once it's gone from her hands, then again, they lose control of that. And so that causes issues. One of the things that I was asked to point out is that even though you're a child under the age of 18, and if you take a picture of yourself in naked or in those types of promiscuous taking an image like that, when you do that, you're technically manufacturing child pornography. When you send that, you are distribution. You can be charged with that. You're distributing it. And then also once you receive it and download it, you're in possession of it. So even though you're a child, you can technically be charged with manufacturing, distribution, and possession of those CSAM images, which in the legal terms, it's considered child pornography. So I just wanted to let you know that maybe you want to discuss that with your children. I'm not necessarily an advocate of M-Spy. I just mentioned this because there are apps that are out there. This one is specific for Snapchat, but there are things that you can utilize to help monitor the text messages that your children are doing. Some of them even have it where they'll send you an email with all of the messages once a day. There are a lot of tools that are out there to help you to monitor the text messages that your children are sending and receiving. Snapchat is one of the big social media apps that children are using. The reason that I mentioned Snapchat, and it's one of the ones that you should, if your child is using it, you should download it and look at it, be familiar with it, how it's used, and the safeguards that are there with it. But one of the things that children may not even know is called SnapMap. There's a link here in the presentation to a YouTube video about it. But when a child is using Snapchat, and if they have the SnapMap on, then all of those messages, you can actually look and see where that child is located when they're sending that message. You can actually go in and turn that off. It's called going into ghost mode. But that's something that you need to do because when that child is sending out that information, somebody can find out exactly where that child is. This is another resource for that. And that also will be here. And I think they're going to give you copies of the presentation, or it'll be in the video. Omegle, however you pronounce it, is something that's a little scary for parents. It is an online application where you can chat anonymously. That's one of the big features that they talk about. What happens is that a lot of times you're on there and you're chatting anonymously, and then the predator will ask the child to switch over to another platform. Maybe it's just texting or another platform where they can actually get to know them and meet them. One of the things that this application has done recently is they introduced video mode. So if a child is on there and they may think that they're talking to another child, and the next thing you know, they're asked to share a video, and it might not be a video that they really want to see. So that's something to keep in mind. Again, it's another application that you might want to take a look at. TikTok is very popular these days. Something you might not be aware of is that there is messaging within that. It says if you're older than 16 years and you have so many followers that you can use the live feature. one of the things that most parents aren't aware of, some of these applications require you to be a certain age, but they have no way of checking, and you can actually lie about your age, and they will allow you to utilize their application. So again, something that parents may not be aware of. Facebook. Most parents think that their children are on Facebook. When I've gone around and doing presentations in the schools, I ask them what they're using, and every time the comment is, "Oh, Facebook is for old people. Facebook is for my parents." We don't ever use that anymore. I remember when I first started, when I was working Internet Crimes Against Children in Virginia, it was, oh shoot, now I've forgotten. There was another one that was prior to Facebook that we were using, and everybody thought when they went to Facebook that the parents were MySpace. That's what it was. And so MySpace was the one that the parents were on. Now it's Facebook. So they've moved on to different applications. Instagram is another one that's very popular, something that you should look into, download it, join it, browse through it, and familiarize yourself with it. One of the things that you can do is you can assist your child in setting up privacy settings on there. This is something that they have that allows you how to do that. But that's something that you need to do as well. There are so many apps that are out there. It's why it's good to open the communications with your child, your children, and find out what they're utilizing so you can go in there and familiarize yourself with them. A lot of parents are not doing that, and they don't know. I understand that the first presenter last week spoke about building those relationships with your children. I think that's a great idea, and that's something that that you need to do in order to help protect your children. One, it gives you an idea of what they're doing, but two, it gives them someone to go to if there's a problem, if something comes up that they don't understand, if they see something they don't understand, or if they just need someone to talk to. Going back to when I was talking about the SNAP map, one of the things that parents may not be aware of is geotagging. Every time you take a picture, unless you've turned it off with your devices, it will show your location. And even if you have a picture that you put on Facebook, people can go in and look at those pictures, and they can pull the exif data off of those pictures, and they can see where you took that picture. So it might be just an innocuous picture. You think, oh, there's no harm in that, but it may be giving away information that you don't want to give away. Again, it's in most of smartphones and cameras. It captures. This is the exif data. Just a picture here, and then you can see the latitude, longitude, geolocation of where that picture was taken. You take that, put it into Google Maps, and now you know exactly where that picture was taken. This is a topic that we're seeing more and more. It's called sextortion. A child is online, they're talking to someone who's posing as a young person, a peer, and they're groomed and talked into sharing a sexual picture. And then at that point, then that person turns around and says, well, I'm going to pass along this picture or video that you've given me to your parents, or to your friends at school, or to your school, or someone else, unless you give me money or sexual favors, or you meet with me. This is becoming a big problem, and we're seeing it more and more these days. Cyberbullying has been around for a while, and I think most of you probably have heard this term at least and understand what it is. One of the things that we've seen, unfortunately, over the years is that, when you're bullied, obviously people think that they have more courage when they're sitting behind a screen. They may say things that they wouldn't necessarily tell a person in person. But some of the things, especially when you're a teenager, your reputation is everything. When you're when your school, the people that you're around, and if, you're being bullied and it goes public, then, we've had instances in the past where that's led, unfortunately, to suicide. So it's a very serious topic. So what can we do? Some of the safety tips that I have here is just a very brief, setting up charging stations outside of their bedrooms. In my house, our children aren't allowed to have their phones and their stuff in their bedrooms or their bathrooms. They're only allowed to have those, and especially if it's bedtime, they're not allowed to have that stuff. They're supposed to be sleeping, so we take that stuff up from them. Random device checks, keeping up with current apps, as I discussed earlier, checking the accounts and social networks, being familiar with those. You can actually link accounts to your devices, and then you can change the password, so you actually have more control over the applications that you're using. And then the biggest one, obviously, is talking to your kids. That's the biggest thing. If you get anything out of this, my talk is talk to your kids, build those relationships with them, and also familiarize yourself with what they're doing and the apps that they're using. This is a checklist. I believe that we have shared this for you to be able to print that out and keep that. This is just some simple rules and some tools for parents to use. One of the things that I did want to point out and highlight is that you should discuss with your children no face-to-face meetings or contact with someone that they have never met before, and the only place that they have met online. Again, you don't know that person. You don't even know how old they are or what their intentions are. So that's one of the rules that I have in home, is no face-to-face meetings with anyone unless they have met them before in person, not if they're just solely meeting them and know them online. Our Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force program has it's a good resource. You don't necessarily have to become a member, but you can. But if you'll know on the notice when you go to the website, there are, and this actually, I took a screenshot, but you could scroll down there, tons of information and presentations for parents, for youth. There are videos. It's a good resource, a lot of good information on here for parents for internet safety. Then we have NCMEC, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They've been around for a long time, and they have a lot of good information on there for parents and children. This is one of their programs. It's NetSmarts. There are videos in there for children from all the way from elementary age all the way to adulthood. There's parents videos on there. They're set up specifically for the age group. There are games that children can play, and all of this is to help educate them and give them some ideas about how to stay safe on the internet. It's a very good resource. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you to give you the link for their cyber tip line and how to report an issue if you come across something that you feel that needs to be reported. Then you can go to this website and report. And then what happens there is they take that information and they triage it, and then they will send that out to the appropriate jurisdiction to look into it or investigate it. And that's the end of my presentation.
Wonderful, Chris. Wow, I learned so much from your presentation. Thank you so much. I did want to let you know that those resources Chris shared will be available on our website after the presentation, mediasafety.org. So thank you, Chris. We will get some questions after we hear from Stacy. So Okay, Stacy, we'll go ahead and jump over to you now. I did want to apologize. We were having some technical difficulties on our end, so it was not Stacy's fault, but we are excited now to hear from Stacy.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Stacy. I'm with the Drug Enforcement Administration. And what I wanted to bring to the table is actually talk a little bit about the drug trafficking, what we're seeing here in the community, the types of drugs, just to make parents aware of what is out in our community right now. One of the things I want to stress is that these nefarious groups that are coming into our communities, they'll do anything to make a profit. And normally it's like drug trafficking, it could be human trafficking, it can actually be gun trafficking. But we'll start off with drug trafficking at this time. Our top ones here in the community is meth. Meth is king. It's a problem across Montana. It's not just at the city levels, it's also in our rural areas. We also have fentanyl, pharmaceutical pills, heroin, cocaine, and marijuana. And I'll go through each of these through the next slides. Okay, so we'll start off with meth. And as you can see on your screen, meth is more of a crystal product. It is a stimulant. If you ever see these baggies, if you look at the baggies on the screen and you'll see residue, you got to be careful. It could be meth residue or it could be fentanyl residue. So never pick up these little baggies if you see them in the parks or the streets or even in the parking lots. Don't pick them up with your bare hand. Meth is made in Mexico. It comes across our southwest border. It can be backpacked in. It could be hidden in car vehicles, or it can actually be liquefied where it's placed in a gas tank. And then what they'll do is the trafficker will pour gasoline on top of it. And if you don't have a Border Patrol agent or a inspector to actually dip into the very bottom of the gas tank, they could actually miss a whole amount of liquid meth. Then it goes back to a conversion lab or to a warehouse where it's recrystallized to make it look like that crystal quartz, and then it's transported all the way up here to our streets. Also, if you'll see on the slide, you'll see these harsh chemicals like Drano, acetone, heat. Those chemicals are what is inside of meth. And we know this because our counterparts in Mexico, when we go into the jungle regions, we're able to take samples of all the chemicals in these meth labs and determine what chemical they're putting into this product. So as you see, meth is a very harsh drug. I always show my students that it can break you down from the inside out, meaning it hits your gum line. And you'll see where individuals that use meth for a period of time, they might be thinning out. They may have a tooth loose. It's because it's the chemicals breaking you down from the inside out. So we'll go down to our next slide. These drugs here, heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, and marijuana, are also in our community. The heroin has come into a community because of our desire for pills, prescription pills. Once the pill prices started going up in Montana, then the Mexican cartel actually sent another product called heroin into our communities because it's the same high, but it's a cheaper drug on the street. So what we end up seeing about 5 to 6 years ago was our individuals that were actively using like 30 milligram of oxys, 80 milligram of oxys, Xanax, other types of pain meds. Because of the pricing going up, then they converted over the heroin because those prices of the heroin was actually a lot lower. And that's where we saw our heroin dependency really shoot up. We have 3 types of heroin here in the community. We have what is called brown heroin, which looks like it can look like dirt or brown sugar. We have what's called black tar, which is more of a sticky substance. And then we have what's called here China white. And our China white definition back in my day was actually pure heroin from Asia. Here in the community, China white is actually fentanyl / heroin. And the problem is now we're starting to see the fentanyl come into our community because it is a type of drug that gives you that euphoric feeling. It gives you back that euphoric feeling. Let me back up a little bit. When you start taking these pain meds or you start taking heroin, you get that euphoric feeling. Well, then you try it again. you get high, but you don't get that euphoric feeling anymore. You try it again and again and again, and you're like, where's that euphoric feeling? It's called chasing the dragon, chasing the high. So what the cartel figured out, they mixed heroin with fentanyl, then that combination gives you that euphoric feeling. And we're seeing people actively on the streets, they're actively looking for this product. The problem with fentanyl, you're playing Russian roulette. I always tell the students that meth can kill you in the long run, but fentanyl can kill you the first time within 24 hours. It depends on the amount of fentanyl that's in that product. And that's what we're seeing across the state of Montana. What we're now seeing is those little blue pills. They're made to look like 30 milligrams of oxy. They're actually fentanyl pills. They're imitation 30 milligram oxys. And the Mexican cartel, what they started doing was that they were moving out big pharmacy, and they were coming into the pill trade under the guise of, hey, we're going to maybe initially confuse the customer so that they can get more of a clientele. Now, we are actually seeing people seek out these specific fentanyl pills just for that euphoric feeling. The problem is you don't know how much fentanyl you're getting. And that's why we're starting to see the overdose rates really jump up. And we are trying to keep our finger on the pulse, and we're trying to connect to our communities to say, hey, be careful about these pills, because these pills may contain 50% fentanyl, 100% fentanyl, or just like 1/8. You don't know what you're putting into your body. We also have intelligence that white fentanyl, powder fentanyl is coming into our communities. And actually white fentanyl is very scary and very dangerous because it can be mixed into meth. It can be mixed into cocaine, or it can actually be sometimes laced in your marijuana joints, which then now segment into the marijuana. Marijuana is a highly, highly potent THC product. The problem with marijuana is that people don't really understand this drug. It should actually be called THC, because the THC is extremely high. For example, back in my era, when I was growing up, a single joint could be anywhere from like 1.3 to 2.3% THC levels. People would pass it around so you could get maybe 0.9 THC levels into your body. Fast forward today, that same joint here in our community can be as high as anywhere from 33 to 35%. You take that same joint down to to Denver, and it can be as high as 45 to 66%. So you can see where the THC rates have really, really climbed. The problem with the THC is that now they're starting to see that the higher the THC levels are in a product, the more that person smokes, or takes into their body, if they are more prone to mental health issues, it could trigger something. There's studies being conducted in Europe. Unfortunately, those studies are lacking here in the United States, but it's something to be cognitive about. There's a reason why those edibles, when you get a cookie or something, they say divide it in quarters or halves, because of that high THC product. Jumping down to cocaine, we are seeing an uptick in cocaine into our community. The problem with cocaine, it could be mixed with fentanyl, and we're seeing more of those overdose deaths take place because people thinking that they're snorting cocaine, but actually they could be snorting pure fentanyl, or actually a cocaine / fentanyl product. We'll go down to our next slide, and just want to touch base on vaping. Vaping is a big problem among our students in our community here. What we saw was that the e-cigarette companies actually targeted the youth. Back in, I would say November 2018, Juul made the voluntary decision to remove some of the sweetest flavors that they had to offer, and then their sales declined. But however, kids are already vaping. That door has been open. So what we see is individuals will sometimes put liquid THC in their vape pens, and they'll carry it into the park, or on a school break, or they'll go into the bathroom and vape. You don't know what they're actually putting into their system. So you got to be very, very careful with vape products. There's a lot of harsh chemicals, and it's something that we need to study up and be cognitive of. Our next slide kind of transition into teens and technology. What we're seeing is that we have nefarious people, or for lack of better words, trolls. They're actually trolling on the internet. And because of kids being on the social media, even up to like 7 hours a day, sometimes they'll venture into an area where it can be very, very dangerous. Predators will troll social sites to try to spot vulnerable kids. And so it's very important that parents are aware of the what their kids are looking at, the different type of social medias. Some of the biggies that we see, especially here in the Billings area, they'll use Snapchat. We do have several investigations, actually ongoing investigations, that will show kids actually actively utilizing Snapchat to sell mushrooms, to sell LSD, to sell different types of drugs, meth. So it's something to be very, very aware of. Also Discord. Discord is a type of a gaming type app where you can actually, it's my understanding, you can go somewhat live on that and individuals can sell on that. You have Instagram. And again, as you have, as the last presenter said, you have TikTok. All of these apps can be utilized to actually sell drugs, to also exploit and recruit kids on the internet. Facebook is a big one, even though that they say that Facebook is, for the older generation, we still see that victims are recruited online via this social media. Now we get into the emoji drug code, and it takes a while to start kind of studying this, but the symbolizations represent different types of drugs. You'll have like drug slang like clear, ice, H, berries, blues, snow, which represents cocaine, trees, which can represent marijuana, or they can put these type of symbols together to represent that they are selling like a big batch of cookies. They can, you see like a plug, you see the little plug emoji, and that means that's actually of a seller of drugs. So you basically need your own little dictionary. And if you ever have any questions or something, please call the DEA office in order to, we can help you kind of decipher the dealer signals or other drugs or the fake prescription drugs, the coding of it. Another thing that we're seeing here is that when you get into trafficking individuals, drugs go hand in hand. For example, if you have an individual that is already experienced with heroin and fentanyl, their exploiter will actually withhold or threaten to withhold things like drugs like heroin and fentanyl. And it's my understanding, based on source information and individuals that use these type of drugs, withholding that type of drug, that will cause a paranoia, because the withdrawals of heroin / fentanyl is very, very nasty. It's very hard. So people they would rather do what they need to do in order not to go through those withdrawals. So we'll see individuals on the street take advantage of their victims, and they'll keep them drugged up so they won't escape. Now, on the flip side, you'll have individuals, traffickers, that will utilize meth and crack to keep their victims in line. Like I said, meth is a stimulant. It's also a sexual drug, but this is how the drug scene plays into the sex crimes and the human trafficking side of things. Going back to this next slide, you can see that there's exploitation, the manipulation. I mean, it starts off like with the victims feeling physical, emotional trauma, embarrassment, empowered, worthless, shame. Well, then the traffickers will get online and they'll exploit these kids, or exploit young adults. And it doesn't matter if it's a female or male. They'll act like they're being trying to show them friendship. Trying to develop relationships, get into like a boyfriend, girlfriend type scenario. They'll give them gifts, and they'll start exploiting that weakness. And then the trafficker will normally try to suggest some type of sex act. It opens at that door, which can lead teens into prostitution, pornography, act stripping, just erotic entertainment. then that victim may make a little bit of money. So that kind of the exploiter will kind of get their hooks into them. And then that can lead into a, they'll create fiction. They can start controlling him more so by, instead of maybe giving them money, they'll give them drugs. And so it's a vicious cycle that goes around and around. And it takes a lot to get that person out of that cycle. So that's why we need to educate ourselves and also see the signs and see what is going on. These are the references. Anybody's more willing to just call me for these references below. But what I want to wrap up with is that I kind of threw out a lot of information to you guys in a short period of time. Yes, we have a lot of drugs coming from the Southwest border. Yes, we have the Mexican cartels that is purposely seeking new customers in the state of Montana because the prices are so high here and they make a lot of profits. Yes, we have here in the Billings, Yellowstone community and throughout Montana, we do have human trafficking going on. But what can we do? We can start sitting down and we can start talking to our kids. Well, first of all, we can start educating ourselves, which you guys are doing if y'all are on this video. But talk to your kids, understand what they're doing on social media, understand what they see in the community or seen in their schools about the kids talking about the different drugs. That's the first window into what is happening in our communities. And then just be proactive. Be proactive in the community. If you see something, say something, and call your local authorities, call DEA. But the more important thing is communication. And if we continue to start opening this door for dialogues, we will have a safer community. And you're always welcome to reach out to me firsthand.
Wow, Stacy, that was just wonderful. Seeing the connection between kids starting on technology and going to online exploitation into drugs and into trafficking is just, it's crazy. It's crazy. So we are going to go ahead and move on to some questions. The first question that I have is actually for you, Stacy. It is, where are the kids getting and buying these vaping products? Who is selling it to the kids? And is that illegal to sell that to minors?
Okay, so yes, there's an age limit, but unfortunately you'll have older kids will actually buy the product off the internet. And then they can get like a larger shipment, and then they can sell to, let's say, high schoolers can sell it to middle schoolers. We do see this type of behavior taking place. And again, if you hear of this taking place, then call your local Billings Police Department, your sheriff's office, and report if you know who's actually doing this. And then they can look into it. They can talk to their school resource officers in their schools to kind of keep a watchful eye. But yes, if you see this taking place, please report it.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, Chris, I think this question would be for you. If you feel as if someone is being groomed for trafficking online, what can you do before the crime is committed?
Okay, I think that Stacy actually answered that question at the end of her talk. Educating yourselves, being out in the community. If you see something, say something. If you building that relationship with your children and communicating. I think that to reinforce what she said, I think that's the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, I would agree that, and I feel like that's what we talked about a lot last week with Amy, and then also this week with you guys, just that communication between our youth in our community, for sure. Thanks, Chris. This one's for you also, Chris. In the past couple of years, how has more kids being online for longer amounts of time impacted the child sexual abuse material that we find online?
Well, the more time you're on social media, the more chance there is for you to do this. Children, these days, instead of talking and being in person with their friends and their family, they're spending time socializing and communicating online. Phones and computers and iPads are so prevalent and so embedded in our society that it's hard to stop. I mean, if you don't understand that, try saying, I'm not going to go online for a day, or I'm not going to go online for, I'm not going to check my email for a day, and see how hard it is. You know, you're constantly patting your pockets and looking for your phone. It's a habit. You become addicted to it. And, children are the same. And so, when that's what they're doing and they're spending so much time online, and COVID didn't help that, with them being at home, sometimes even unsupervised. And, that's all they're doing is communicating and taking classes, and they're online. It just opens up the door for issues and for problems.
For sure, for sure. I am mindful of the time, but I would like to ask each of you one more question. I know that we are over our time, but Stacy, what age range do you see kids in our community being introduced to drugs?
I see a divide between 6th and 7th graders. When I do presentations, the 6th graders have some knowledge just because of social media and what they hear from the other grades, but I see them being a little bit naive. But I'm seeing 7th graders now talk more and more about LSD, hits of acid. So I would say by 6th grade, start talking to your kids, definitely. Now, if in certain areas, like on the reservation, kids need to be start at 5th grade, because they're being more exposed to the drugs at a younger age instead of older.
Definitely. Thank you. Okay, Chris, and this last one is for you. And I've actually gotten it multiple times from a school counselor and just some anonymous attendees. What do we do when our students are receiving nude pictures? How do they capture proof? And do they get in trouble if they have that on their phone and someone sent it to them? Can you give us a little bit of information there?
So that's one of the reasons why a lot of children don't come forward, is because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. They're afraid that their parents are going to punish them. They're afraid that the teachers, educators are going to get them in trouble. But we need to let them know and inform them that, when it comes to that, sure, you could be charged with that, but you have to look at the bigger picture. And what you're trying to do is to stop it, and stop the person's sharing it and all of that. So you need to open those doors and have those children feel comfortable to come and speak with the counselors and with their teachers and their parents about what they're seeing and what they have. And then at that point, letting them decide whether they want law enforcement to be involved, or whether they can handle it themselves. They don't necessarily have to have law enforcement involved the entire time. Now, they can if they want, and obviously our doors are open all the time for them to contact us, and if they need assistance with these issues.
Wonderful, thank you. Wow, I just got chills. Our community, we have so many wonderful people. I have worked with people like you, and then the counselors in our state, and the teachers and parents. I know that there's so much hope for us. We just have to keep educating ourselves and making sure that we're doing our best within our spheres of influence. So thank you so much for both of you for being here. If you did have a question that didn't get answered, I know that we did not get to all of them, but remember that we will send you a follow-up email with a link to this video. And in there is a way to submit questions. And both Stacy and Chris will, I'm sure, be okay with answering a few questions through email. So that is all the time that we have for today, but we can't thank you guys enough for taking your time to be here, for that great presentation and the wonderful knowledge that you gave us. Join us next week, which is Tuesday, April 19th at noon. And we will be talking about raising mentally healthy kids with Matt Leavenworth. And like Chris touched on today, Matt will provide parents with information and understanding about the risk factors for mental illness and teen suicide, including the role that technology plays in it. And we really know that parents will come away with strategies and interventions that they can do to help their children at home. Matt will also cover finding and creating supportive and compassionate communities for our parents here to engage with. So invite a friend to join us next week. You can send them to mediasafety.org to sign up. And just a reminder that the videos are being recorded and posted to our website. You can share them with your associates and watch them as many times as you want. We will email you when they're available. And thank you again to our champion sponsors, Yellowstone Bank, Rimrock Pediatric Dentistry, Billings Clinic, Brewer Dental Center, St. Vincent Healthcare, and Billings Public Schools. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.